All right, sharing now.
Okay.
And
be there.
I'm ready.
Yeah, man.
How are we? Hey,
Ooh.
it's good to see you.
Ooh. All right. Ready? Here we go. I got a couple clips today. A couple.
Oh man, you are
It's a twofer. It's a twofer.
super prepared.
Yeah. Well, no, not really. All right, it's the Brad and Britt cast. It's our second one for this week, and that means it's Wednesday, or as we call it, Schlump Day.
I see what you did there.
Remember Schlump Day? Yeah,
Slump.
yeah, that's us. Uh, all right. Well, where shall we start? I'll tell you what. I got a list. Got a list. Got a
Oh,
list.
good.
There
I
it
love a
is. There it
list.
is. There it is. Take your choice. The most dangerous Trump of all.
Uh-oh.
Liberal justice destroys NPR.
Yeah, I did see that.
Mm. Putting the squeeze on Donald. Bullshit survey.
Jeez.
Or Joey's polls suck.
Jeez, this is the worst. Let's start with the most dangerous Trump of all.
Ah, okay.
Huge hit for Whitney Houston.
Yeah. I have a clip that I have not brought with me here to the Brad and Britt cast today because I'm too lazy to pull it off of my TV.
Of course.
But I will describe it, and then I will play for you the clip that I do have that has this person, the most dangerous Trump, talking. Now, of course, Donald Trump is in his own class, and we'll get to him later. We have a nice little mashup of what he did Saturday in Arizona, but that's later. I believe we in North Carolina, every one of us should be thanking our luckiest of stars that Laura Trump decided not to run for the United States Senate, that we did not have to be subjected to her as a campaigner locally for many, many reasons, because she is maybe the most dangerous Trump, maybe the most evil, maybe the most conniving. And she kind of operates, I think, below the radar most of the time.
Right.
And every once in a while, she pops up. She'll be at the convention, or she'll be at one of these, right wing confab fuck fests and make a speech. And all the guys in the GOP Trump wing see her, and they start pulling it out and whacking it because she's hot as shit. Because she's not really a Trump, right? She married into the family, so she doesn't have the Trump genetic problem, and I think they do have some. So here on let's see, was it Friday or Saturday? Saturday after the or in the middle of, actually, maybe it's Friday night, probably Friday night, in the middle of the hostage situation in Texas at the synagogue on Fox is Laura Trump, because who better an expert to talk about a hostage situation in Texas than Laura Trump? And we will play this clip tomorrow when I get up the energy this afternoon to grab it. But let me just summarize. You ready? Here we go. Because you can answer it real quickly here. Her thesis was that this kind of thing never happened when Donald Trump was president. That there was no terrorism like this when Donald Trump was president. In effect, there was no anti-Semitism in America while Donald Trump was president. And now, then, we had a Muslim taking hostages. That was her thesis. And of course, she said it with all the assurance that she was speaking the truth that there could ever be. And of course, she gets no pushback or fact check or someone saying one word, Pittsburgh, or three words, tree of life, add a fourth word, synagogue, where it was 11 people were murdered. Okay. Right. So just think about this. But this is what the Fox viewership is exposed to. And it works. It makes them believe, for instance, that with all of the issues surrounding Joe Biden, now we find out that he is just okie dokie with terrorism, anti-Semitic terrorism in the United States. That, thank God, we had that 4-year respite when Donald Trump was there to protect all of us because he loved everyone, as opposed to Joe Biden. But so that was then. This is now, and this happened this morning. And it's always fun to watch mommy and daddy fight, right? We love watching mommy and daddy fight or listening to them. And in this case, daddy is played by the utterly loathsome, below the belt, horrendous late morning anchor on Fox Business, which is not a business channel. It's Fox News that has the word business after it. And they cover the same shit. They only cover politics. Occasionally, you get the price of a stock. Okay. So it's just the same right-wing Fox blather that you get all day long. So, of course, who's the guest this morning? Laura Trump. And what is the subject? Well, it's the Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump smackdown. And I want you to hear this because what you're going to get is the standard evasion of the facts. And even Stuart Varney, loathsome son of a bitch that he is, speaks the truth here. Here we go.
Thank you very much indeed. Florida's Governor DeSantis says backing President Trump in 2024 is, quote, too much to ask. Laura Trump is with us. You know, that sounds pretty conclusive to me. Mr. Trump, I believe, wants a clear run in 2024, and he wants the backing of all Republicans. If he doesn't get it, and he's not getting it from Ron DeSantis, there's bad blood. This is not a made-up story, is it, Laura?
Well, Donald Trump hasn't said that he is running in 2024, so let's start there. The idea that you could actually give support to someone that hasn't said they're running, I'm not totally sure about that, but look, as far as I know, there is no bad blood here between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis.
Okay, I think you get the point.
There's no bad blood.
So
they're fine.
So right. So the line is that this is a distraction from all the terrible things that Joe Biden is doing. Why aren't we talking about inflation? Why? You know what? I guess I kind of stopped it too soon. I think she says these things. Here we go.
Isn't it interesting that the media, though, Stuart, is not focusing on, I don't know, the 40-year inflation, embarrassment on the world stage, and all the major issues in our country? Instead, they're focused on this.
What is she? What is this inflation? I haven't heard about that. Have you? Nobody's covering that. It doesn't get any coverage. So this is how they're going to try to fend this off at this point. And I've told you this before. One of my father's best descriptions of people like Laura Trump. He's not here to do it. I'll do it for him. She's a bad broad. She's just a bad broad.
Bad broad.
She is just a bad broad. Oh my!
Funny. It says
is that why?
It says here that Laura Trump attended Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina. Brad, that is the same high school as who?
Did Michael Jordan go there? I'm just guessing.
Jeffrey Jordan is the
man
that made that. So you know, I guess they couldn't bat 1,000. I guess some asshole had to come out of there as well. In addition to North Carolina State University, she attended the French Culinary Institute in New York City, Brad.
Yeah, but you know what? She married a Trump. She married Eric Trump, who at this moment is most famous not only for being Eric Trump, but for taking the Fifth Amendment, count them, 500 times last fall when he got dragged into the clutches of the state of New York and their investigation into his father, Donald J. Trump, and their real estate practices and the way that they lie. 500 times he said, on advice of counsel, I will not answer that question, for it's possible it may incriminate me under the Fifth Amendment rules. I'm paraphrasing what I guess there isn't really one standard way you do that when you take the Fifth Amendment. Everybody has a little different way to do it. That's how I did it when I took the Fifth Amendment, only 200 times when you sued me many, many years ago, but I forgave you, and here we are.
It's on a card. The lawyer gave you a card. You're supposed to read the card. That's how it happens. That's how it works.
Yeah. Can't you just like hold up a little sign like they do on Dancing with the Stars that just has the phrase so you can 9 or Fifth Amendment?
Joe Biden has listened to your criticism, Brad, and he has decided to put his press conference today in prime time. No, he hasn't. It's another 4:00 press conference because Grandpa, who is full of dementia, has to eat at 4:30. Could you guys play to the stereotype a little bit fucking more? 4:00. 4:00, because it can't be done any other time than 4:00. Has to be done at 4:00. That's frustrating to me.
Well,
obviously, it's very frustrating.
Right. Remember, so we're talking a couple of hours before this, and the setup here could not be worse.
Yes.
And by the way, the time of day that this is happening is the least of the problems here, don't you think?
But it's not helping.
If it bombs, it will be better than it wasn't at 8:00 at night. All right. Because if the approach is going to be, and let's lay out all the worst case scenarios, and we'll see. We'll have to answer for this on the next Brad and Britt cast on Thursday. We'll have to answer this. If he takes the advice of lots of people who say the big problem with the Democrats is they're just not bragging enough about their accomplishments.
Right.
Okay. If that's what he does, okay, it will not work, because you cannot, with one press conference, with one statement, and Joe Biden sometimes is not, how should we say, the most delicate person when stating his case. And if he gets aggressive, if he gets a question from, let's just pick a name, Steve Ducey from Fox, who asks him, your polls at this moment are the worst of any president, maybe since Donald Trump. And I know you're going to say that, but let's put this into perspective. A lot of people are comparing you to Jimmy Carter. Are you worse than Jimmy Carter, equal to Jimmy Carter, or do you just suck on your own? If he asks a question like that,
you suck on your own.
Right. And Biden loses his cool, right? It's either going to be the greatest loss of cool ever. Okay. It's going to be as good as when Nixon, took on Dan Rather, which a lot of people think Nixon won that one. Okay.
No.
It was not. I know you're thinking, but if you go back and look at it, as great as Dan Rather was, it really pumped up the Nixon folks. Okay. So I don't know how, and we're in a different situation here. So if this was a stock and Joe Biden was a stock, there's about a 10% upside and about a 90% downside probability that his stock is going to close later tonight than it did during the day, because there's not a lot of win in this. But on the other hand, I could be wrong, and he could hit it out of the park. And clearly, what's also, unfortunately, going to be on display, because it's ad lib and there's no reading and there's no nothing, is any grammatical error, any slip up will be taken as proof that Joe Biden really should be not president. He is not cognitively able to be president. And you just tell me when you want me to play the wonderful Donald Trump mashup, which was not in a press conference format. This was just him. This is nobody putting pressure on him. This was just him trying to talk. So the standard of being able to speak and not making an idiot of yourself and not mispronouncing words, really, it's actually a lot lower, right? You should be able to really get through it a lot easier than at a press conference where everybody's under pressure. And, 40-year-old, perfectly brilliant people make mistakes when they're speaking. But that's not this. Remember, that's not the standard that we're working with here, is it, Britt? It must be perfect, or it's complete proof, right? That's how it's going to be. So you just tell me when you want the Trump mashup here, and you can listen to him fuck up so unbelievably. They're the kind of things that really make you think he has no clue. You want it? Okay,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
you got it. Here it is. This is about a minute and a half or so, and this is a nice little squeezed together group of statements from Saturday in Arizona. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Come on.
The big lie is a lot of bullshit. That's what it is. We all knew that Joe Biden would be not so good, but few could have imagined that he would be such a disaster for this country. We never even heard the term supply chain. If you're talking supply chain, it's not something that we've been
Wait a minute.
There are 4 times more.
So that was the standard Trump attempting to try to paper over his inability to speak.
Supply change is what he said.
Right. And then he keeps going, says it correctly as if you didn't hear him blow the first version of it. Okay. Just that we need to always point these out.
COVID cases. Remember, I'm going to get rid of COVID. I'm going to get rid of COVID. Instead of letting us resume, and that's what we want to do, our normal lives. Biden's trying to bully and intimidate people with his ridiculous.
Well, if there's anybody who bullies and intimidates, it's Joe Biden, isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's definitely Joe Biden. There's no question.
Yes, anger. You gotta listen to me. Listen. Where am I? Where the hell am I? The left is now rationing life-saving therapeutics based on race.
Of course, that's completely not true. Remember the lying quotient going on here. But go ahead.
Discriminating against and denigrating.
Is that a new word? Denigrating?
Denigrate.
Is that a new word?
Denigrating white people to determine who lives and who dies. If you're white, you don't get the vaccine, or if you're white, you don't get therapeutics.
Wait a minute. We have to fact check that one. Because what he's talking about is that in certain situations with the limited number of the new Pfizer therapeutic, you should take into consideration one of the mitigating factors, race, in who gets those new Pfizer drugs. It's not the only thing, but it might be a problem because we know who's died more of COVID. So Trump turns that into, if you're white, you can't get it. But first he says you can't get the vaccine. Okay. He blows it, right? And then circles back and says the therapeutics, which of course they're both factually wrong. And it's just on and on he goes. We got a little bit more here, I think.
They're so good.
All right. That's it. We got it. That's it.
So this is good. So you're saying it's a good thing it's going to be at 4 o'clock because he might suck. We need to maybe start scheduling these at 4 a.m. Then if that's going to be the case, if we're so worried that he's going to suck ass, we might want to put these on in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. Dear God.
Yeah.
I'm not really optimistic about a whole lot. I don't, because it doesn't seem like there's any good defense of anything right now. It just doesn't. It's like you just got to wait, and then maybe the economy better be better by November, but then maybe it won't, and you just don't know. And the Republicans don't really have a good.
Well,
there's not a good messaging thing for the Republicans, because I thought they were going to push the Parents' Bill of Rights thing coming out of Virginia they're kind of doing the social thing with critical race theory and not, the
hang on.
parents shouldn't have anything to do with schools, but they don't
Hang
really
on.
have anything.
No, I think you're not thinking strategically. I hope the Democrats are thinking strategically, and I know they must be, that because the giant throw everything into the pot attempt to pass the large comprehensive legislation has gone nowhere, and of course it's only because 2 Democrats aren't voting for it. It's not because 50 Republicans have now basically given a blood oath, and again they're open about it. Our goal is to completely destroy Joe Biden, the presidency, no matter what it takes. And if that means saying no to everything that might help the American people, fuck it. It's more important to destroy Joe Biden and the Democrats in the next election than anything else. That's all that matters. That's how they play the game. That's how Mitch McConnell plays the game. I'm trying to think of something in the last 20 years that you could say, well, Mitch McConnell, his name is on that piece of legislation. That has really helped the American people. And of course, don't try. You can't. That's not what he does, right? That's not what he does. It's like Jesse Helms, okay?
Can do it.
It's as if Jesse Helms really did not die. There was just a younger version of him learning the tricks of the trade, not quite as overtly racist,
right,
but in his own way, just as evil as Jesse Helms. And if Jesse Helms had become the minority or majority leader of the Republicans at any time, this is what you might have had, but of course, worse. But let's get back. They know, and we know, and this is, I think it's analogous to what happened with Obamacare when they were trying to pass that. And it was dead. It was over. People had thrown in the towel. Britt Whitmire, on his own podcast of his mind back in the year 2009, was saying to himself, it's over. Obama's finished. But not only is there going to be no health care legislation, there will be no Affordable Care Act, but Obama may as well just jump off a cliff. That's what he's saying about Joe Biden right now. Is that correct? He's saying it's over?
Well,
yeah, okay.
I just don't. Every time that I seem to come up with, or anyone seems to come up, it's not just you. Any sort of, this is how we can defend ourselves. It's like, no, can't say that. No, can't say you created 6.4 million jobs. No, can't say that. And there's just no defense. They continue to be able to pepper Grandpa with whatever they want to, and you can't fight back because people are hurting.
Well, it's easier to be negative than positive. We know that. So Republicans are better as being in the opposition. But during that time where Obamacare was dead in the water, it was over, the polling still was just like we have right now, which is when you break up what was in Obamacare,
right?
Everything polled fantastic. Covering everyone for pre-existing conditions, got it. Right. Covering children under the age of 25 on your health insurance, we love it. Put it together and call it Obamacare. That's socialism. It's a big government takeover of our health care. Thank you, Frank fucking Luntz, for shit like that. But what happened? They pulled it together, and they had the votes, and they got it done. Albeit it wasn't a 50-50 Senate back then. Barack Obama had he had the 60 votes. It was just a question of getting them, right? He had a couple holdouts at the end, but they got them. And this is not the same as that right now with a 50-50 Senate. However, Obama, I'm sure, had there been a complete flop and breakdown and no Obamacare bill overall, they would have started to try to pass those individual components. And that's what they clearly have to do. They've got to do it. They've got to get a couple of the big parts of this legislation passed. And of course, you know that this is the same Joe Manchin who is now saying no to the very provisions that he himself negotiated. And essentially all he leans on, this is so pathetic, all he leans on is that Republicans won't go along with it, so I won't go along with it, right? That's really all he's saying. So if I can't get any bipartisanship on this, zero, and have you thought why you're getting zero bipartisanship on this, Joe? That's not important, is it? Not important as to why. Because you know, and we know, that not every Republican is against the environment. They're not against child care. They're not against all those things, but it's more important for the political win to destroy Joe Biden and the Democrats. So, Joe Manchin, you're going along with that. We can't change that, right? There's nothing you can do to change that. But if you break it up and start like that, that's the best you can do. You can't cry over what you couldn't do. You have got to look ahead and tell folks what you can do, and then do it, and then brag about it. But right now, they're not even close to that. So at this moment, your view of this, it rules. It wins. Can Joe Biden turn this around at 4 o'clock in the afternoon press conference? Of course not. Of course not. Any more than he could last week turn around attitudes of senators like Manchin and Sinema on voting rights legislation. I mean, these people are dug in, and we are in effect fighting against people 150 years later who are exactly like those who fought against Reconstruction and the integration of blacks into the country after the Civil War. They rebelled against it. They did everything they could. They put up with it for a while. You know, the Civil Rights Acts of 64 and 65 and the Voting Rights Act, well, they've lasted, 50, 55 years or so. Reconstruction only lasted, about 10 or 12 years before that completely blew up. So if you want to make the case this lasted longer than that, you can. But the lines have been drawn, and they really may as well be waving Confederate flags, because that's what they're doing. And Joe Manchin, representing the great state of West Virginia, and Arizona, which wasn't in the Union back in the 1850s and 60s, they're acting like Confederate senators. They kind of are.
And West Virginia, of course, split from Virginia over slavery. So that was kind of he's kind of got it backwards. In fact, they're not even really embarrassed about waving the Confederate flag that much anymore, as far as the Republicans go. The Democrats a little more embarrassed, as it was. Manchin, I just don't think I don't know if it's being expressed to the people of his state how much he screwed them over not voting for Build Back Better. I don't know if that's being really communicated to those people. Do you?
Well, I haven't looked at West Virginia media at all. We should make ourselves do that when this is over. Mm-hmm. We should take a look at what's being written and what's being said. But I think it probably doesn't matter. This is a guy who is not thinking about the people of West Virginia clearly. He's not the governor anymore. He's not a congressman anymore.
But that's the irony of everything. That's the irony. He always says, if I can't sell it to the people of West Virginia, I ain't voting for it. That's what he says every single time, right? Anything comes up.
Right.
This is something
right. And Britt, the level of lying and bullshit in that statement is so off the charts, because you have to actually believe that there is a significant number of people, forget a majority, just any kind of significant number of people, like more than 10 in West Virginia, who know about, care about, are interested in the filibuster. You tell me if in those diners that every fucking cable channel goes to talk to people, that they know what a fucking filibuster is, that they know that only in the U.S. Senate do you have to get 60 votes instead of just 50 out of 100 to agree to even talk about legislation, let alone pass it in all of these categories, except for ones that Mitch McConnell decides, no, we don't need 60. Or when the country is about to default at 10 minutes before midnight, yes, they change the rules and they say 50 votes will get it done. And then they get 50 votes right now to save the country from going into default. But no Republicans want to vote even to keep the country from going into the toilet either. So they can pretend when the country does go into default that they were part of a large vote that saved it, even though they might be the 50 that voted against it, and 50 plus one Kamala Harris saves the country. That's where because remember, they can change the rules for anything they want. They really can't. This is not some kind of, oh, they've never done it. This would be the end of the world. Oh my God, that rule, which was if you watch the Ten Commandments, it is on those tablets. You'll notice, thou shalt not pass shit with less than 60 votes in the U.S. Senate. You've seen it. You've seen it.
It's just always, West Virginia has always been a very poor state. They've always relied on the largesse of the federal government to just shovel money, projects, and whatever. And they always did. It didn't matter whether it was Byrd or it was Rockefeller or whoever. They would always bring home the bacon, right? They would always do that. Here's an opportunity for him, and with a shit ton, like a big truckload of money to shovel into West Virginia, and it's going to help some of the people there. And this guy figures out, he gets all squeamish when it comes to spending money. However, again, that defense budget comes through, doesn't bat an eye, signs it with no problem, and we got no issue with that whatsoever. It's stunning that this guy gets away with this shit, but he does. He gets away with this shit, and somehow some people admire him for this. That's what just surprises me so much.
Well, I do think, though, we do give him too much blame and credit for this, because it is an entire party of individuals, Republicans, who have pledged their blood oath
Sure.
to destroying the country as we know it. And it is fair to say that, yes, 96% of the Democrats are on board.
Yeah.
So it's 48-2, and it is fair. But in the real world, it doesn't matter. The facts like that do not matter. And see, that's the sad part of it. It's like just taken as a given. That's just the way it is. It's you get to start 10 yards ahead of the other team,
right,
on every vote. You get a spot of 10 every time. And I think we've talked about this before. It is like in sports, if the point spread was real, okay,
yeah.
if it was real.
Exactly.
And so this weekend, when who do the Packers play? They play the lowest seeded team.
I think it's the Niners. They got the Niners up there.
I think that's right. Okay, so the Packers are probably favored by 7 or something like that.
Right.
Right. So it would truly be if the score started out 49ers 7, Packers nothing, and that the Packers actually had to win or score more than not just the 49ers, but more than the 7 plus the 49ers score. And no one would tolerate that. It's too stupid. It's too stupid to talk about. And if you can find me one country, listen close, one country in the world that copied that feature of the United States government, I will buy you not one, but 2 pizzas of your choice. And the answer is, you can't find one. Nobody does that. It's too stupid. It's not too stupid to talk about that we do it, but it is just too stupid. And a lot of constitutions written around the world have many things, not all things, that the United States Constitution has in it. And why would that be? Because they've been written since the United States came into being. And if you wrote a constitution in 1924, 1951, you had the advantage of, if you did use the United States Constitution as some kind of example, you got to look at it and say, well, yeah, this ain't going to happen. This is not going to work.
This works. This doesn't work. This is good.
Right.
This is bad. Yeah.
Which in a sense, we should probably do that. There's another assignment point. That's a deep dive here. That's a whole book about why other countries said certain things just were a bad idea or were proven to be bad ideas, things that we can't fix, because there are a lot of things in our Constitution that we just are stuck with and get interpreted and misinterpreted by the courts over the years. Let's talk about the Second Amendment for just a moment.
Just for a second.
So
Yeah.
very few countries have anything even close to a Second Amendment. Right. So there must be a reason. They could actually just look at the murder rate in the United States and say, maybe we don't need that whole any asshole can get a gun kind of provision in our Constitution. So, we're stuck with it. and another thing we've talked about in so many different areas is, why are we doing X? Because we've always done X that way, and we can't change it. And of course, this 60 vote thing is, it's just a disaster. And okay, I know. Stop with the cards and letters. Stop with the tweets. Stop with everything. You're going to rue the day when the Republicans control and they have 51 votes and they can do anything they want. And you're going to come. We know. We knew it. That's why we have Donald Trump appointing 3 justices instead of just 1.
Exactly,
okay, which he was entitled to really do.
We rolled back the threshold. No, that you're right about that. We've done it that way. We do it that way because we've always done it that way. That was always the thing when we were working at radio stations. We go, hey, we're going to be at the shit ass festival, like we were last year. Where do we park? And they go, oh, same place as last year. Hey, dumbass! What if I don't remember 365 days ago? It was always that, right? We're going to be at the Blackberry Festival again this year. Well, where should I park? Same as last year. I don't know where that is. So I don't.
Well, I don't know whether parking locations is the best example of the stupidity. That's a mild version of the stupidity that we would repeat over and over again.
That one would drive me crazy, though. They would do that all the time. Where are we going to park? Same as last year.
No,
okay.
Britt, here's a better example. You ready? Yeah. Caller number 10.
Oh, I love it. I do love caller number 10.
Why do we always take caller number 10? Because we just always take caller number 10.
It's a round number. We did lots of research, and people love the number 10. And they'll listen to your station so much more.
Right, because Bo Derek wasn't an 8. Bo Derek wasn't a 6. He was a 10. All right.
Do you want to do Don't Squeeze the Donald or NPR?
That's your choice.
Let's do Don't Squeeze the Donald.
Okay. All right. Late Tuesday night, the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, put out the whole list of shit that she wants to throw at the Trump organization, deservedly so, all the things that he did wrong. And this is a civil lawsuit. This is not the criminal proceedings that are going on in Manhattan. And it talks about all the lying about how much his properties were worth, his personal fake appraisals over his golf courses, and that house he has up in, I think it's in Westchester County, that they've never been in, but they value it way up there. It's in, I guess, Seven Springs, New York, wherever that is. And I don't know whether that was the best idea to lay all this out to the public now, because it does feel very James Comey-like right before the election of 2016, where he held that horrendous press conference in July and laid out all the reasons why he should go after Hillary Clinton, and then said, but I'm not going to do it. So he tarred her with all the charges, didn't charge her, and Donald Trump ran with it down the field, and it helped. But her emails, right? That was the true, real rebirth or birth of but her emails. And in this case, Letitia James has laid out all these things that the Trump organization did, trying to connect them directly to, did Donald Trump know this? When did he know it? Was he responsible for all this misinformation, disinformation he was giving to tax authorities and to banks to get loans? Is that criminal? That's the question. Is it criminal? Because the defense is sort of easy. It's sort of easy. Here it is. Very simple. These banks aren't stupid. They were going to take my word for it. They have their own appraisers. You don't get to just appraise your own Trump Tower apartment. I think he said it was 10,000 square feet. Turns out it was 30,000 square feet. Maybe he was saying that if you have 3 floors and it's 10,000, you get to just say 10,000. You don't say that the second floor is also 10,000. The third floor is 10,000. Whatever kind of bullshit he was doing. But believe me, somebody noticed that, and he didn't get away with it. So is Donald Trump a criminal? Is he a crook? Is he a thief? Of course he is. Of course he is. Are his children in on it? Of course they are. But a good mafia don, a good organized crime leader knows how to keep their fingerprints off of the worst moments that can be used against them. Doesn't always work. John Gotti, they finally got him. They finally nailed his ass. Now, of course, part of what helped nail him were all the secret recordings they had of him saying things. Donald Trump, there aren't that many secret recordings of him. You know, Michael Cohen had that one thing that he played a couple years ago. Remember that, in his office, saying all kinds of horrible things,
Right.
that essentially did let you know that Trump was in on it. But that was 2 years ago, so we don't have much of a memory. So I don't even remember what that was about. Trump got away with it.
It was writing a check to somebody. It was writing a check to cover up.
Right. That was the Stormy Daniels check. Take care of it, Michael. Take care of it. Well, what does take care of it mean? Maybe he meant bring me lunch. He didn't necessarily. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Trump, of course, doesn't email and he doesn't text. That would be the same as if John Gotti did all of his business inside a sealed vault so that he couldn't be wiretapped and so that he couldn't be videoed in restaurants and all the kind of places that he liked to do business. When the FBI nailed him, he couldn't be wiretapped. He wouldn't use a phone. So the answer is Trump, more evil than John Gotti. Trump, a more wily mob boss than John Gotti. Okay? And for her to put this stuff out there right now without it being an ironclad in terms of the precedents that have ever been set in this area, and of course, real estate appraisals of all the things that are subjective. And of course, it isn't really a case of saying it's Britt. I think your house is worth 150,000. You think it's worth 900,000. Okay,
right,
Britt,
right.
You are committing fraud. Okay, that's what this is in terms of what happened. But did you do something criminal by saying it was 900,000? Only if you end up getting a loan from some bank that doesn't bother to check and suddenly says, well, you have 900,000. Here's 200,000 to go play with, Britt. So yeah. So I don't know whether this is proof that he's dead in the water or anything of the sort. But the fact that earlier on Tuesday, you had the Fab Four. You have Rudy Giuliani, Boris Epstein. Never seen it spelled that way, which I think that's the original German for some reason.
Possibly.
Don't know if that's about right. That Jenna Ellis, right? And who was the fourth one? Was it Lynn Wood? Was he the fourth? I can't remember the fourth.
I think Lynn is the fourth one.
Yeah. That actually gave me a lot more hope than the late night document dump of what Letitia James in the state of New York has against Trump in the civil trial, because the fact that they've waited to nail all these people with actual subpoenas and that they're not playing we're going to send them a letter asking them to come, please talk to us. And then that kills a few more weeks, right? And then they said, fuck that. Here's the subpoena. And of course, then they can ignore that. And then we have the same discussion. So what are they going to do when they ignore a subpoena? Well, it's the same thing. But the fact that they lump those four together, I mean, they're thinking. I mean, they're not being stupid about this. It may not be as fast as we want. But I thought that was an important thing that they did yesterday. What's your take?
I agree. I'm always very reticent of Lucy pulling the football out from under me, because every time we seem to be close to nailing these guys, something happens. It goes in this direction. But I do feel like, again, the walls are closing in. And you're right, when it comes to the banks and when it comes to fraud, they don't fuck around. If you're gonna lie, they're gonna get pissed off about that, and eventually you're gonna have to pay for it. So I'm hopeful that eventually somebody's going to go to jail. Somebody named Trump is going to go to jail. That is what I'm crossing my fingers for, and I hope that's the outcome of this whole thing.
But hang on a second. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, Ivanka Trump or Don Jr. gets nailed. and they're unable to make the case against Donald Trump Sr.,
Right.
then if Trump, quote, gets away with it, which so far he's getting away with it, and is left to run for office in 2024, and his kid has been indicted and convicted, and maybe even in jail, could there be anything more stimulative to Donald Trump's campaign than that? To be the victim, because remember, it's all about us against them.
Sure.
It's all about how unfair the system is. It's all about only I can fix it. It's all about if I were in charge, the correct people would be in jail. Nancy Pelosi, blah, blah, on and on and on and on he would go. So I think that's a be careful for what we wish for. Because this is where there isn't anything even close to the comparison of Watergate, because after Watergate was over and Nixon had resigned and he was never going to run for office again, he was done as a politician. And then I think about 40 people were indicted and convicted of crimes associated with Watergate. There was no martyrdom or victimhood that propelled Republican candidates into the future. That's not to say that some of these guys didn't make a great living off of being victims, like G. Gordon Liddy and guys like that. I mean, I get that, but that's different. That's different than if Nixon had beaten the rap. Let's say Nixon had beaten the rap. There were no Watergate tapes, but they still were able to nail the underlings, and they went to jail.
If they got Julie Nixon and they put her
right, Julie Nixon and Chief of Staff H.R. Haldeman go to jail.
Tricia Nixon had to go to jail.
Right. Then and of course, by the time Watergate hit, Nixon had already been reelected a second time, so he couldn't run again anyway. But it's just, this is worse. This is more proof that it's worse than Watergate. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. I'm going to have to, as we finish up, we're going a little long here, but I'm going to have to finish up by issuing an apology to somebody who I would always hate to apologize to, and that would be recently defeated for the national championship coach of the University of Alabama, Nick Saban. This story.
Yeah.
Nick Saban imploring West Virginia's Joe Manchin, along with another guy with West Virginia ties, NBA legend Jerry West, and former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue. They are appealing to Joe Manchin to reconsider the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Act. That's what they're going at. So I'm assuming now that Nick Saban's mansion in Tuscaloosa will be firebombed by about 8:30 tonight.
And of course, the answer is it won't be. What are Nick Saban's connections actually to West Virginia, if there are? And did he coach there?
I don't think he coached there. He may be from there. It says we come from. This is the part of the letter reads.
But you know what? Look real fast. Go to Nick Saban's wiki and see if he was born there. Because I had to look up why Paul Tagliabue signed it, and the answer is very simple. Because Tagliabue
it says he was born in Fairmont, West Virginia, which I have
okay. So that's Saban. With Tagliabue, he was commissioner of the NFL when the Martin Luther King holiday kerfuffle was rolling strong, and the state of Arizona refused to sanction the holiday and voted against it. And that's when Tagliabue pulled the Super Bowl out of Arizona.
Yep.
And it took them a year or two to come around, and 3 years later they got the Super Bowl in Arizona. But that's why Tagliabue has at least the public chops to be able to sign on to this letter. He could have anyway, but I think because the Martin Luther King holiday connects so much with the moment right now, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the John Lewis Act of this moment, good for him. Just fucking great for Tagliabue, great for Jerry West, and good for Saban. And there is a fourth guy on there. I can't remember who it is.
Let me see. Tagliabue Mansion. It is Saban, and I don't know who the fourth one is, but somebody.
Yeah, is that person.
They're good. And they're very good.
Ringo from West Virginia. We don't know.
Wait a minute. West Virginia University alumni Oliver Luck, Andrew Luck's father.
Oh, okay. All right.
As well
Good.
as Daryl
All right.
Talley.
Yeah.
By the way, Oliver Luck was recently sued by Vincent Kennedy McMahon over his second failed start of the XFL, and they sued him in part because they wanted an iPhone back from him, or he had misused the iPhone. That was one of the things in the lawsuit about Vince McMahon going after Oliver Luck.
And of course, he starred in that sitcom in the 70s with Dom DeLuise called Lots of Luck.
That was good.
Right. Was he in that show?
I see that on MeTV every now and again. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you know what I'm doing right now? Okay, you ready? I'm running they run My Three Sons on MeTV at 6:30 in the morning. Okay. But they only run one episode of it Monday through Friday, I think. And I'm recording 4 of them because I want to fact check what I've heard on the Gilbert Gottfried podcast a couple
I knew
times.
you were going to say this.
Because the charge is that Fred McMurray, who was an aging movie star by then, who they talked into doing a sitcom, right on CBS, he said, "Oh fuck, I don't want to do this," but they threw a ton of money at him, and he said, "All right, I'll do it, but I just want to shoot my scenes by myself one day for the whole season, and you edit me in there." And the charge is that you don't see any scenes of Fred McMurray with anyone else because they just chop him in there. So I want to check that. So I'm recording 4 of them this week. One of them is in the can. I haven't had time to watch it yet, but I want to see whether that's true. Because if that's true, that is the greatest deal. That is the greatest deal in the history of television. I mean, it's even better than the fact that Raymond Burr was such a lazy fat ass. He wanted to be in a wheelchair to do Ironsides so he could sit there. You know, he could walk. He wasn't paralyzed, but he made the character be a wheelchair.
Make the character a paraplegic because I'm too lazy. I don't want to walk.
Yeah.
And then on Canon, they made him a fat ass. No, he really was a fat ass.
He was.
I didn't.
No, they made him eat. They made him eat profusely for 6 months before the first episode.
Is that what they did?
Yeah, William Conrad weighed 140 pounds before he started. He weighed 290 by the time they started shooting. A lot of people don't know that.
It was in his contract. He had to eat 10,000 calories a day and not do any exercise.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.